Hi everyone, you're watching the Virtual Amicus and I'm Jay Lodha. So today's topic is very interesting and today's topic for discussion will be the power of the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal to grant an interim protection or a stay order beyond a period of 365 days. Now also we'll be discussing certain fundamentals and concepts associated with it, the landmark judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court of India. Now we all are aware that right of an appeal that is preferred against an order of the income tax authority. We see day in and day out, there is a huge bulk of petitions that are preferred, there are appeals that are preferred. Now, the power to grant stay by the income tax appellate tribunal has always been subject to numerous litigations. So the earlier the courts were of the opinion and of the view that a tribunal, the income tax appellate tribunal, has an inherent power to grant a stay against against the recovery of the income tax demand. But it was quite recently that the Honorable Supreme Court of India, in the case of BCIT versus Pepsi Foods, examined the power and held it to be otherwise. Now, there were two major issues that were there before the Honorable Supreme Court. So, whether there was a delay in disposal of appeal, which was not due to the fault of the SSC, then can the stay be granted, would be vacated after a period of 365 days, or whether the delay in disposal of appeal could be attributed to the actions of the SSC, the stay would automatically vacate on the expiry of 365 days. Now, there were a number of amendments that took place in the Finance Act that replaced the third proviso that would provide that the stay would be vacated after the expiry of 365 days, even if the delay in disposing of the appeal was not attributable to the SSC. It was subject to litigation. The challenge was made before Honorable Delhi High Court that held it otherwise. It said that there was no power within the tribunal to extend it beyond 365 days. And further, the SSC could prefer a writ petition under 226 article of the Constitution of India. Well, the Gujarat High Court then disagreed with the view of the Honorable Delhi High Court, and subsequently, when the matter landed before the Honorable Supreme Court, the constitutional validity of that amendment was challenged. And ultimately, the third proviso to Section 254, subsection 2A, was held and struck down as being arbitrary and discriminatory, and ultimately being violative of Article 14 of the Constitution of India. So this was the topic in a nutshell. But to elaborate further and to give our valuable insights, we have with us a very special speaker for today's session. The amicus for today's session is Miss Devika Jain. Now, just to give you all a brief introduction, Ms. Devika Jain is a direct tax practitioner at Vaish Associates Advocates. She graduated from Campus Law Center, Faculty of Law, Delhi University in 2015. Thereafter, she's been practicing mainly before Honorable Delhi High Court, Honorable Rajasthan High Court, and before Honorable Supreme Court of India, where she practices and specializes mainly in areas of taxation, arbitration, commercial litigation, civil disputes, constitutional matters. And prior to this background, graduating economic honors, she also holds company secretaryship, and she pursued her law from Campus Law Center, Delhi, Faculty of Law, back in 2015. And at Vaishyan Associates, she did numerous tax litigations and also dealt with opinions pertaining to corporates such as DLF, Maruti Suzuki, etc. She also worked on the Vivad Se Vishwas that scored a number of landmark judgments to her name. So thank you so much, Ms. Devika Jain, for taking out time on a working day. And any introductory remarks before we begin the presentation?
No, thank you so much, Jay. I think that was more than what that was really nice of you to give me that elaborate introduction. In fact, I'm very grateful to you for reaching out to me and taking this initiative and giving me this opportunity to, in fact, disseminate the knowledge that I have acquired over the years in my domain of work. Now, so I welcome you all for taking time out, and I hope by the end of it, you all have a better insight into the key concepts that I would be deliberating on today. So also, just to give you a heads up, taxation law includes interpretation of very complex statutory provisions. So I've tried to simplify it for people from the non-tax, non-litigation background in order to have a shared understanding of the judgment that I'm going to discuss today. So the Supreme Court decision is on tax tribunal's power, as Jay has already mentioned it to you. It's on tax tribunal's power of extension of stay, which was a batch of 30 to 40 matters, where I had the opportunity to brief one of the leading counsels, Mr. Ajay Vora, and the AOR advocate on record, Ms. Kavita Jha. So with this introductory note, I would like to start the presentation. I would just share the screen. Right. Is the screen visible? Okay.
Yes, if you could. Yeah, it's visible.
All right. So the topic for today's discussion is ITAT's power to grant stay beyond. So this is basically once the stay has been given, this is basically an extension of stay. This is beyond 365 days. So I'll be dealing with the judgment and the related legal concepts. So I'm just giving you an overview of the topics which could that I'm going to be discussing. That
Miss
is the
Devika
kinds of
Jain,
taxation.
we are unable
Yes.
to see the screen. We can see the slides, but if you could increase the size of the slides, if you could switch to a
Just-
speaker mode.
Just all right. Okay. Okay. You're unable to see the slides, is it? Is
I
it
think
visible now?
I've done it for
I'm
you. I've
sort
done
of-
it for you. Don't worry, I've done it for you. Yeah, you can proceed.
Okay. Is it all right now?
Perfect, perfectly fine. Please go ahead. Please. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I've just tried to give an overview of the topics that I'm going to be touching upon today. That is, just very basics, types of taxation, which is what is direct taxation, what is indirect taxation, assessees, who are assessees, what is the legal definition of an assessee, what is the mechanism of appeal before for the direct tax appeals, that is the appellate hierarchy with respect to the direct tax appeals, the income tax tribunal, the power, section 254 that refers to that relates to orders of appellate tribunal, the stay by ITAT, a legislative history of the section that we are dealing with here, the constitutional wires of which has been challenged before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's decision also, since it was on the anvil of Article 14, I've given a bit of discussion on Article 14, and then recent amendment with respect to Section 254, which is another further challenge that we need to look out for. So, all right. So, taxes are compulsory levies by the government. And to tax means to impose a financial charge or another levy upon a taxpayer, an individual or legal entity by a state or the other functional equivalent of it. Now, basically, taxes could be direct taxes, could be indirect taxes. Direct taxes is said to be, any tax is said to be direct when the impact and incidence is on one and the same person. It's said to be indirect tax when the impact is on one person and incidence is on another person. That is called indirect tax. Now, direct taxes are supposed to be borne by the person on whom these taxes are levied. And indirect taxes are levied on the supplier of goods and services. The burden of tax here is passed on to the consumer. This direct tax is based on the income earning ability of the people. So hence the assessees pay tax here, whereas the indirect taxes are based on the production, sale, purchase of goods and services. For example, GST and VAT, entertainment tax, electricity duty, all of these. So direct tax, for example, income tax. Now, when I talk about income tax, who is an assessee? Assessee is essentially a person who pays tax on his own income. Basically, he is defined under Section 2(7) of the Income Tax Act. Any person who is to pay tax, interest, penalty under the Act, or he is eligible for a refund, and any person in respect of whom any proceedings under the Act has been taken. Now, what do you understand by deemed assessee or representative assessee? Deemed assessee could be tax that is paid by agent on behalf of an NRI, or tax that is paid by a legal representative of a deceased person. It can also be paid by guardian of a minor. So in this case, tax is essentially paid by somebody else on behalf of someone else. Now the third category is assessee in default. Now let's say if someone has not paid the taxes that or not deducted TDS, so in that case that person becomes assessee in default. So all these three categories fall under the ambit of the definition of an assessee by the Income Tax Act. Now I would want to give an overview about the procedure and the mechanism of appeal. So whoever, now let's say a notice is issued to an assessee and it reaches the assessing officer, and the assessing officer passes the order. The assessee, whoever is aggrieved by the assessing officer's order, can file an appeal. This is the first appellate forum before the Commissioner of Appeals, that is CITA. Now, thereafter, this is the first appellate forum, and an appeal against the order of CITA can be preferred by an assessee or the income tax authorities, which is the revenue department. And this appeal lies with the appellate tribunal. Now, an appeal by the revenue can only be preferred where the tax effect exceeds the specified amount. So these are the monetary limits that have been prescribed by the CBDT from time to time by way of circulars. Now, the ITAT's order can only be assailed before the High Court if there arises a substantial question of law or if there is any perversity in the order of the ITAT. Now, this appeal before High Court is filed under Section 260A of the Income Tax Act, and against the judgment delivered by High Court, the aggrieved party can prefer an appeal to Supreme Court if the High Court gives a certificate of fitness, or an appeal can also lie under under Article 136 of the Constitution. Now, what is an income tax appellate tribunal? In ITAT is basically a quasi-judicial body that specializes in dealing with appeals under the Direct Tax Act. Now, an appellate tribunal is constituted across various jurisdictions as per provisions of Section 252 of the Act. And under Section 253, an exhaustive list of the orders that are appealable before tribunal has been prescribed. ITAT is the final fact-finding authority in terms of the income tax matters. Also, the presiding officers consist of a judicial member, and which has prescribed a number of experiences as prescribed under the Act, and also an accountant member. Now that we have an understanding of what the ITAT is, I'll look into what stay essentially is. Now, stay, there is a right of appeal against the orders by the income tax authorities, which has been expressly conferred by the on the taxpayers by the Act. Now, in disposing of these appeals, the appellate authority have an inherent power to grant stay against the tax demands raised by income tax officers. So this is a discretionary power, and for stay usually is granted where, in most deserving and appropriate cases, where the tribunal is satisfied that the entire purpose of the appeal will be frustrated or rendered nugatory by allowing the recovery proceedings to continue during the pendency of appeal. So here, essentially, the arguments are by the assessee has to establish prima facie merits in their favor, or the hardship, and that the case deserves a stay on that front. Now, what happens once a stay is granted? Whether there is automatic vacation of stay beyond a particular time limit. So we'll be looking into Section 254 of the Act, which is the orders of the appellate tribunal. So does the stay become inoperative after a particular time? We'll be looking into these questions. Now, let's have a legislative history and judicial precedents, a collection of these judicial precedents under in relation to stay, that is Section 254. Now, stay as a concept was first introduced by Finance Act 1998 by way of Section 253(7). Now, this section basically provided for levy of fees on application of stay of demand. Now, prior to this, the power of appellate tribunal to grant stay was held to be incidental or ancillary to appellate jurisdiction. Thereafter, there were two provisos which were inserted in subsection 254(2)(a) by Finance Act 2001. Now, this provided that an income tax appeal has to be disposed of within 4 years But in case there is a stay granted, it has to be the tribunal shall dispose of the appeal within a period of 180 days from the date of such order. Further, if the appeal is not so disposed of within the period of 180 days, the stay order shall stand vacated after the expiry of the said period. Now, by the Finance Act 2007, another amendment was made. There were two provisions that were substituted with the previous three provisos by Finance Act 2007, and that gave tribunal the power to extend the stay up to 365 days. Now, the third proviso provided that if such appeal is not so disposed of within the extended period of 365 days, the stay order shall stand vacated after the expiry of the said period. Thereafter, by the Finance Act 2008, a further proviso was inserted which provided that the order of stay shall stand vacated after the expiry of 365 days, even if delay in disposing of the appeal is not attributable to the assessee. Now, constitutional validity of this part was challenged before various high courts. The leading case is PepsiCo's judgment, which I will be discussing in the further slides. And thereafter, this was challenged by in Supreme Court judgment, which we'll be discussing further. Now, what is this section? Section 254 refers to orders of appellate tribunal. This basically provides where the appellate tribunal, after giving both the parties an appeal, an opportunity of being heard, may pass order whatever it thinks fit. However, I'm reading the relevant part here that provided so that it shall not in any case exceed 365 days. The order of stay shall stand vacated after the expiry of such period or periods, even if the delay in disposing of appeal is not attributable to the assessee. Now, this was the part which was challenged in before Delhi High Court in PepsiCo versus Assistant Commissioner of Income Tax. Writ petition, there are various other writ petitions connected with this matter. Now, the Delhi High Court in this judgment and several other judgments from various high courts held that it basically struck down that part of the third proviso to the section of the Income Tax Act, which did not permit extension of stay beyond 365 days, even if the assessee was responsible for delay in hearing the appeal. The reasoning that was given, the stay which was available to him prior to 365 days having passed is snatched away simply because the tribunal has, for whatever reason not attributable to the assessee, been unable to dispose of the appeal. Now, take the case of delay being caused in disposal of the appeal on the part of the revenue. Even in that case, the stay would stand vacated on the expiry of 365 days. This is despite the fact that the stay was granted by the tribunal in the first instance upon considering prima facie merits of the case through a reasoned order. Now, the object that appeals should be heard expeditiously and that assessee should not misuse the stay orders granted in their favor by adopting delaying tactics is not at all achieved by the provision as it stands. On the contrary, clubbing together of well-behaved assessee with those who cause delay in the appeal proceedings is itself violative of Article 14 of the Constitution. So this has no nexus or the connection with the object sought to be achieved. The said expression introduced by the Finance Act 2008, therefore, was struck down as being violative of Article 14 of the Constitution. And consequently, it is held that where the delay in disposing of the appeal is not attributable to the assessee, the tribunal has the power to grant extension of stay beyond 365 days in deserving cases. So here the Delhi High Court held in favor of the assessee and said that wherever there is delay in disposing of the appeal not attributable to the assessee, tribunal has power to grant extension of stay beyond 365 days in deserving cases. Now we come to Supreme Court's judgment. Here, this judgment, the impugned judgment was challenged by the revenue before Supreme Court. And this is by 3 judges bench, Justice Rohinton Nariman, Justice B.R. Gavai, and Rishikesh Roy. And this judgment was delivered on 6th April 2021. A little bit of discussion on Article 14 of the Constitution of India. Now, we all know what Article 14 is, but to say the state shall not deny to any person equality before law or the equal protection of laws within the territory of India. Now, since the Article 14 is on which the provision is challenged, I'd just like to give you a little bit gist of what this Article 14 is. The Article 14 of Constitution, any challenge can be on the grounds relatable to discrimination as well as grounds relatable to manifest arbitrariness. So the question that we can all bear in mind is whether the clubbing of well-behaved assessees with those who cause delay in appeal proceedings violative of Article 14 of the Constitution, and does it bear any nexus or connection with the object sought to be achieved. Now, the decision that was, this is the operative part of the judgment that I'll just be reading out here on the slide. Since the object of the third proviso to section 254(2)(a) of the Income Tax Act is automatic vacation of a stay that has been granted on the completion of 365 days, whether or not the assessee is responsible for the delay caused in hearing the appeal, such object being itself discriminatory in the sense pointed out above, is liable to be struck down as violating Article 14 of the Constitution of India. Also, the said proviso would result in automatic vacation of stay upon expiry of 365 days, even if the appellate tribunal could not take up the appeal in time for no fault of the assessee. Further, vacation of stay in favor of the revenue would ensue even if the revenue is itself responsible for the delay in hearing the appeal. In this sense, the said proviso is also manifestly arbitrary, being a provision which is capricious, irrational, and disproportionate so far as the assessee is concerned. Now, the decision that was given is that the law laid down by the impugned judgment of the Delhi High Court in Messrs Pepsi Foods Limited is correct. Resultantly, the judgments of various high courts which follow the aforesaid declaration of law are also correct. Consequently, the third proviso to section 254(2)(a) of the Income Tax Act will now be read without the word even and the words is not after the words delay in disposing of the appeal. Any order of stay shall stand vacated after the expiry of period or periods mentioned in the section only if delay in disposing of appeal is attributable to the assessee. Now, the appeals of the revenue were therefore dismissed. Now, just to give you a comparison between the scenario that was prior to the Supreme Court's decision, that is what was happening by way of this amendment is, how the section was read is that even if the delay is not attributable to the assessee, there would be an automatic vacation of stay. This resulted in automatic vacation of stay upon the expiry of 365 days, even if the appellate tribunal could not take up the appeal in time for no fault of the assessee. Now, here the tribunal could not take up the appeal, which is why the assessee was getting punished. Vacation of stay in favor of the revenue would ensue even if the revenue is itself responsible for the delay in hearing the appeal. Now, again, the assessee would face the repercussions of a delay which was made by the revenue. Now, there are two distinct classes of assessees which were treated equally, and diligent assessees which were treated at par with those who were adopting delaying tactics. So, as a result of which, for relief, assessees had to file writ petition with the High Court for grant of stay and for direction to the tribunal. This would end up in multiplicity of proceedings, and this would result in increased litigation cost. Now, since the Supreme Court has read down the particular amendment, and now it is read as follows, that delay is attributable to the assessee. So only when the delay is attributable to the assessee, then there would be an automatic vacation of stay. Any order of stay here will stand vacated after the expiry of period or periods mentioned in the section only if the delay in disposing of the appeal is attributable to the assessee. And a great relief, this comes as a great relief to the sincere taxpayers, in whose case the extension beyond 365 days can now be granted by the tribunals itself, and they need not approach the high courts. So here, the assessees who, after having obtained stay orders and by their conduct delay the appeal proceedings, they had been treated in the same manner, and which was not in any way desirable. So this has been basically undone by the Supreme Court's decision, and this is a relief for the taxpayers in that sense. Further, there are certain challenges since there have been a few more amendments, which are recent amendments by the Finance Act 2020 that I'm going to be reading. So this is the amendment that has been made. The relevant part is here. Provided that the appellate tribunal may, after considering merits of the application made by the assessee, pass an order of stay in any proceeding relating to an appeal filed under subsection 1 of section 253 for a period not exceeding 180 days from the date of such order. Now, this was subject to a condition that assessee deposits not less than 20% of the amount of tax, interest, fee, penalty, or any other sum payable under the provisions of this act, or furnishes security of equal amount in respect thereof. And the appellate tribunal shall dispose of the appeal within the said period of stay specified in that order. So I'll tell you by way of this recent amendment, just to explain you, a mandatory precondition, this could be mandatory or directory, which is open to challenge, or which is also open to challenge. A precondition stipulating for depositing 20% of the disputed amount has been imposed on the taxpayers for obtaining a stay. Now, the section reads that the interpretation of this amendment is that stay can be given by ITAT only subject to minimum deposition of 20% of the disputed amount. Now, the open questions here is whether this suffers from arbitrariness, unreasonableness, whether this impinges upon the independence of judiciary, whether it is violative of Article 14, that is mandating the assessee to pay in accordance with so-and-so first proviso. And is it also a harsh and unjust consequence? Does it also ensue as a harsh and unjust consequence on the assessee? So whether this is a legislative crippling of power, is it justified? Is it not justified? Whether this amendment is directory in nature, whether it is mandatory, whether it is retrospectively applicable, prospectively applicable. So the constitutionality of this has been recently challenged before the ITAT Bombay, and this has been referred to the larger bench by the tribunal. And this is one judgment which is still pending, and this is the imminent judicial contest to watch in the coming days. So by this, I come to the end of our presentation. If anybody has any queries, they can email it to me or put it in the comments below. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Devika Jain, for your valuable insights on the issue pertaining to ITAT power, the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal's power of granting an interim order or stay order beyond a period of 365 days in light of the judicial precedents and in light of all the amendments that have taken place in Finance Act. So I hope our viewers will immensely benefit from this presentation of yours. In case of any query, please feel free to write to us. We'll be more than happy to forward the same to our speaker for today's session. And you can even email your queries directly on her email ID as mentioned in the slide. So thank you so much, Ms. Devika Jain, for your time. Thank you so much to everybody. Stay tuned. Next episode is on its way. Stay home, stay safe. So it's goodbye for now. Thank you so much.